Hello viewers. Defence. Episode 1 I touched lightly on personal boundaries, body language and how people react to people intruding on their personal space. Body language is one of those things that it's well worth looking into, researching. I just touched on the basics of it. In this episode I'll talk about passive defence on places where you live, where you may work. Passive defence. In this day and age, a lot of houses, your sanctuary, businesses where you work, have some sort of surveillance system, I suppose you could say. It's well known. I mean, you walk into a supermarket, a retail store, there's cameras all over the place. They're not hidden, they're in full view. And the reasons why they have this is to catch would-be criminals on video footage, so that the moment they step outside that store without having paid for an item that they've got on them, store detectives or security staff can detain them. That then becomes a form of aggressive defence on behalf of the store staff or security staff catching that criminal. Quite often in these stores you'll find that they have what they call a layered defence. Passive. They have cameras right throughout the store. They have cameras at the entrance of the store. So in a way that's a layered passive defence. In your home, where you live, your sanctuary, many people have enhanced passive defence systems in the way of electronic systems. And they could be motion detectors on the outside of the house, on their perimeter or their boundary. They may be cameras that are rolling all the time, that may be only triggered when a passive sensor sets it off, and a good example of that is trail cameras or game cameras. If they're set up in the wild, they'll record or photograph whatever triggers the sensor on those. In the home, whether it be an urban area or out in the boondocks somewhere, something like that, you have layered defence. You have what they call sometimes a hard passive defence. It may be a fence or some obstacle like that. Now, generally speaking, only keep the honest people out. It's the intruder that you worry about with criminal intent. Someone that's going to do you harm or break into your sanctuary, your home, or your business and steal stuff out of your house or your business. Something of value. It's a resource, okay? Just keep that in the back of your mind for later videos. It's a resource that they're after. In these times, in-depth security will look at your home. You have a hardline barrier, sometimes a fence. Some houses don't. It may be just the front, might be all four sides, whatever. Then you have the house itself, your sanctuary, which have doors and windows. Quite often the most vulnerable places where it's easy to gain access to the interior of the structure. What a lot of people do as a passive defence is quite often not calling a security expert, and they'll ask their advice on the best places to set up passive security, electronic security devices and that so on, whether it's motion detectors enhanced by lighting or some sort of audible sound goes on like a siren or something like that. It may be just a silent alarm system, where in the upmarket ones, the more expensive ones, it goes back to a central security company where they monitor. In-depth passive defences are a good idea, but it can breed complacency. A lot of people think that because they've got these enhanced electronic passive defence systems that they're safe. No, they're not. If you ask any security expert, whether it's a security company, and they come out and do a risk assessment and they look around and they say, well, yes, we can put sensors in here, passive sensors in here to cover that area in this area, but there'll always be blind spots. And to the criminal element, organised crime, they're always probing to find the weak spots in your passive defence. And for the organised ones, they are very, very experienced at it. What other means can you use to cover the blind spots around your home, around your sanctuary? You can have more layered defence inside with cameras, motion detectors, that sort of thing. A lot of people tend to have organic in-depth defence, and by that I mean dogs. Hell, even some cats I know, geez, they're more vicious than bloody dogs. The thing is here is your sanctuary, you may not always be there, and you've got to sleep sometime, okay? So you're relying on these electronic passive defence systems to give you some measure of passive defence. It gets aggressive when something is an incident and it's either handed by a security service and it can be handed onto the police. I have 2 dogs here. I live out in a rural area, and they are my organic defence inside my boundary, property boundary. They're awake at night. They're very alert, sensitive to strange noises and things like that. I have not trained them to be vicious guard dogs. They're quite placid dogs. Love kids, that sort of thing. Visitors come around, no problem. But if a stranger's poking around, you can tell the dog becomes alert. They can hear a lot better, smell a lot better than humans. And most of the time they can see a lot better in the dark than we can too. So if you look at the reaction of the dog when something strange is going on outside that's not in the normal range of things that they may be used to, then that's an organic alert for you to say that something is going on outside, there's something wrong. That's passive defence. Long story short, there was a guy walking down our road one night. We have seen him before, very suspicious, because he walks down at night with a flashlight, and if we have visitors here and they park the car out on the road, he's always going over the car with a flashlight. One night my wife went out to the front gate and challenged him verbally. What was he doing? What the hell are you doing? We've seen you walk up and down this road several times with a flashlight checking out cars and fences and gates and all that sort of stuff. His body language started to become aggressive towards my wife. She was still on the inside of our gate, still inside our boundary, but he stepped up to our boundary in a move that showed aggression through his body language and the way he was talking, and instantaneously our 2 dogs were sitting by her side, one either side of her, and they just looked at him and snarled at him. He backed off. That's when our passive defence started to become aggressive with the dogs. The dogs were warning him, do not come inside, do not come near. Passive defence, it's a good idea to have layered passive defence. As intruders bypass, and they do work it out, they can be watching a place. You've got to do a risk assessment. Where are your blind spots? What can I do to cover those blind spots? Can I use organic resources such as dogs? Yeah, I know dogs, they bark, but you can train dogs not to bark. I can tell by the way my dogs bark whether it's a friendly bark or it's a bark that's serious. It's saying, there's something out there and you're not coming in here or else. In rural areas, just about every rural house, farm, that sort of thing, has a dog or 2 dogs or more sometimes. One of the problems with passive electronic passive sensors, and it happens in my area because I live in a rural area, it can breed complacency, because we get wildlife coming through the yard at night, so we've got outside lights. They're not triggered by passive sensors or movement detectors, because the lights will be going on and off all night and so on, which breeds complacency sometimes with some people that just say, oh, I've had enough of this, I've been up all night, awake, yada yada yada, the alarms are going off, and they're getting a phone call from the security company, and they just switch it off. This is sometimes a way of probing by the criminal element, finding out where your passive defences are, and over a period of time they keep doing that so that you grow complacent, switch your passive defences off, and that gives them the weakness that they're looking for. Wildlife are the problem around here with any sort of passive sensors, electronic passive security system, because we've got wildlife coming through this yard all the time. We've possums, feral cats, that's a big one. We do have wild dogs in the area. Other critters that are coming around, some nocturnal bird-like, we have owls and that sort of thing. Even movement of leaves in high winds and things like, depending how sensitive it is, that will trigger the motion detectors or similar things like that. It's happened on my trail cameras out in the bush when I've been looking at wildlife. Something will just trigger it. It could be just, depending how sensitive the sensor is, could be just an insect, movement of leaf, wind blowing debris in high winds. It could even be heavy rain. I've seen that happen on trail cameras too. So you've got to weigh up, do the risk assessment, and know your ground. Again, I say know your ground, and you'll hear this repeatedly through the videos in this series. Know where your blind spots are and look at ways to get around them or cover those blind spots. But you can use organic means such as dogs or something like that. The next video, I'll step it up a bit, everyday stuff, the sports field. Thanks very much for watching, and episode 3 will be the sports field. Thank you.